Welcome, cats, kittens, boys, and girls. I'm Rob Lee. With me is, for this podcast, actually, this is Getting to the Truth in His Heart. With me in this episode, I got Dan D from the Mighty Mastermind Team's Robcast.
Hey.
Wow.
Well, I didn't feel like doing my usual wee boo boo thing. This is a different podcast, so with a different opening.
It's almost a full Crown City Cook, by the way.
Oh, you are right about that.
It's almost a full episode.
Nom 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 dom dom dom. By the way, then
See?
there we go.
And for this episode, we have the chef owner of Foraged in Hamden, Chris Amendola.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming
It's
through.
super awesome that you're here.
I'm stoked. I can't wait. It's gonna be fun.
So yeah, as we talked a little bit before we got started, we just try to get right to it. We try to show who a person is, and you're making a lot of headway in and around Baltimore.
Awesome.
I've been to your place. Usually, I treat businesses and people I consider artists like I look at them almost like the way I look at rappers, right? It's like if your bars are trash, I'm going to tell you your shit is trash, and I can't say that about you. What you do is great. I admire what you're doing. I like your food, and I want to. And I like, I guess, ultimately what I perceive your mission and your goal and all of that stuff is. So tell us about you. Tell us about Foraged. Just like whatever version. It could be the long run. It could be the short one. It could be the medium one. Whichever one you want to do. We got some questions and all of that good stuff. So let's get into it.
All right, that
You can
sounds good.
plead the fifth at any time. We are cool with that.
I might throw that in there a
There you
couple
go.
times.
The hot seat situation.
Cool. Start at the beginning.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
Let's see. Growing up, I think that's what really got me into cooking. When I was real young, I had a lot of exposure to foods. Part of my weekly allowance with my parents was I had to sit and record this TV show for my dad while he was at work. And it was back in that day with VHS. You had to sit there and hit pause and record the commercials and stuff like that. So, I actually had to literally sit there and watch it, And these shows were, I don't know if you guys ever heard of them, but like Great Chefs of the World and Great Chefs of France and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Old, like early 90s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, like I really didn't know what I was watching. To me, it was just like some guys cooking on TV,
Yeah.
But I sat there and watched it. My dad loved to cook. So I got a lot of exposure from that. Baking on the baking side of things, my mom, really stepped in there with like cookies and cakes and stuff like that. That's where my love of chocolate chip cookies comes from.
Yeah.
I was baking chocolate chip cookies when I was like 6 years old.
Oh, that's
So
Yeah.
and then really past that, like my aunt and uncle played a lot into it. We would make like fresh pizzas every time, like literally from scratch, making the dough, letting it rise, and so really I had a lot of exposure, to cooking growing up.
Sure.
First time I ever made hollandaise sauce, I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Wow.
Damn, I still can't make hollandaise.
Oh my!
Can't do it.
I can literally drink that stuff. I love hollandaise sauce. Oh my god. So anyway, a lot of exposure at an early age, and then going into my teenage years, I started culinary school when I was 15. And it was just a vocational school.
Sure.
It wasn't anything crazy. And so I was going to culinary school and got a job as a dishwasher at this bar, pub kind of place.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got, into the industry that way, washing dishes and stuff. During that time, I kind of got, really, really into drugs, really into drugs.
Oh, haven't we all at some point in our lives?
So kind of, for like 15, 16, 17, I actually dropped out of school, never finished high school. I don't have a GED, nothing like that. So into drugs really, really heavily, up until about 17 or 18. I actually got a job back into a restaurant, and at that time I was still dipping my toes in things, and it finally got to a point where I was like, doing ridiculous amounts of cocaine, at that time. And I was just like, I got to be done with this. Like, I want to cook. I need to get away from this. This is a town I grew up in Florida, in St. Augustine. So I ended up leaving St. Augustine and I moved to Orlando, and just kind of like buried my head in work, to get away from everything, and I jumped from job to job there until I landed at Todd English's Blue Zoo in the Swan and Dolphin Hotel. It's on Disney property. And that was kind of like, oh man, that was like an eye opener to me. We would do like 600, 700 covers a night, and it's like real fine dining. Like plates had to look real nice and food, So it was like, it was like a completely different world than anything I was used to. But the chef there really took me under his wing and taught me about like cooking and flavors and stuff like that. So that was a really good experience to be able to get that, high volume kind of cooking. I will never do that again in my life, but at least I can say I did it, So, and then after that, I actually helped him open another restaurant in Orlando that didn't really work out. So that's when actually I left Florida and I moved to South Carolina, and he hooked me up with Chef Sean Brock, where I worked for him for I think it was about 2 years at McCrady's, and that was still hands down probably a life-changing career move for me. When I got there, they had their own farm. They were growing their own produce, and like the food was just beautiful and super fresh, and a lot of that modern style cooking with like foams and stuff like that back in the early
what was it,
2000s.
gastronomy or what have you?
The boom of the gastro bombs.
I mean that's that stuff's cool. It's beautiful what you can do with the food and stuff like that, but I think the real eye opener there for me was the exposure to the farms. Growing up in Florida, you don't really get that a whole lot. I mean, my mom had a farmer's market when we were young, so I mean, kind of saw a little bit, but you never really went to the farms and there I was like part of the whole process. So we would plant the seeds, and then we would watch the plant grow and harvest it, and then take it to the restaurant and cook it. And it's just like, you saw what work went behind growing this produce. And it's like the last thing you want to do is take it to the restaurant and overcook it or burn it or something, and then have to throw it away, and then it's like all of that's lost, And so that was like that completely changed everything for me, working for Sean, and that's actually where I got mostly into foraging as well. He took me out a couple times when we were out on the farm, and showed me things here and there, and I was like, oh, but this is really cool. Like you can find food in the woods, And so I ended up leaving there and moving to D.C.
He's getting closer and closer to Baltimore.
Right,
Hearing it.
It's
just
like
we still got a ways from Baltimore.
Oh, man.
He's like, then I went to Cali for a year.
So D.C. was interesting. I helped open a hotel there, the DuPont Hotel.
Okay.
That was just a mess. We can skip over that whole thing.
This chapter is very short, 1 page.
When I got to that hotel, they were like, oh, 2 weeks till opening. And I was like, all right, cool. First day, I hadn't even been to the hotel yet. And we get to the hotel and still construction, and there's no food. The kitchen hasn't been inspected, and nothing. And I'm like, okay,
Problems.
This is going to be fun,
And they still expect you to work.
Oh yeah. We it was insane those 2 weeks. We were working literally from 5 o'clock in the morning until midnight, 7 days a week. We had no staff. We were pulling staff together to try and get this opening. It was a disaster. So I stayed there for about a year and a half or so, and then I was looking around. I actually staged at Mini Bar for a while. That was really cool back when it was 12 seats at the bar. And,
okay, yeah.
You serve 12 people, 30 something courses. It was cool. It was awesome, to see. But at that time, it wasn't really what I was looking for. I was still looking to get with the local food scene and work with farmers and stuff like that. So I actually ended up moving to the Berkshires up in Massachusetts, which was, the area is beautiful. Winters are awful. I don't know how anybody lives in winters like that. There was a 3-month period where it didn't get above -20 degrees.
Damn.
And it was just the warnings were don't go outside and blah blah blah. And I'm like,
shit,
where did I move to? You know, but it was cool. You know, it was my first like actual executive chef position. Man, I was young. I was like 26 or 27. So it was kind of crazy. That whole experience of trying to run a kitchen, and put a staff together, and you know, move to a different town and not know anybody, and it was cool. You know, it was definitely a really really good experience. But that's where I really got into foraging, because that area is amazing. Yeah, an old forest. You know. And actually ended up meeting the forager for the Mamafuku group. He forges everything for like David Chang and stuff like that. Cool. Yeah, so it was really awesome. You know, he took me out a couple times, like once in fall, showed me a lot of fall mushrooms and stuff like that. And then again in springtime, was showing me like morels and, you know, stuff like that. And I was like instantly just hooked. And, you know, like these mushrooms are just growing, you know, like you can literally pay $40 to $60 a pound for these mushrooms, but I can go to the woods and get them for free. Like, you know, like what's better than that, you know? So
a little hint of the wood action.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, God, the mushrooms I used to find up there were just insane. All different kinds of varieties, but I ended up getting fired from that job, which was really funny. Well, it's a funny story. It wasn't funny at the time, but so I had this forager. He brought me these mushrooms. And he called them bicolored boletes. And at that time, I didn't know, you know, boletes. The bolete family is the porcini family. So I was like, oh, cool, you know. And he's like, just make sure you cook them enough because they can make you a little sick. And I was like, okay, you know. And so with these mushrooms, it's, you know, when you cut them, they turn blue, which generally is a sign that you don't want to eat that mushroom. Like anything that turns blue, like you don't really, you know?
You may turn blue.
Exactly. So I had started prepping them, and you know, like I always do, tasted it while I was cooking it, checked seasoning and stuff like that. You know, not thinking a thing about it. Next day, I woke up and I was just like, it was almost like I was tripping, but not like hallucinating. I was like spinning and like nauseous, and I was like, oh man, like what is wrong with me? So I went to work and, you know, started getting ready for service, and I pulled out these mushrooms and it like clicked, and I was like, oh my God, I ate these mushrooms. I was like, this is crazy. Like, and I was talking to my GM, and I was like, hey, I need you to look up these mushrooms and see what they were. And like not 2 minutes later, he comes running back to the kitchen. He's like, yo, he's like, you need to call the CDC. You need to call this forager. He's like, what I just read, you have 2 weeks to live.
Shit.
And I'm like,
what?
I was like, oh my God, wait a minute, you know? And I was like calling my mom. I was like, Mom, they're still down in Florida. I was like, Mom, I need to get home. I got 2 weeks to live. Like, I ate this mushroom, and I was like freaking out.
Wow.
And so I had finally by this time it was like 8 o'clock at night. So I had finally gotten a hold of the forager that brought me him. He's like, no. He's like, you'll be fine. You're just going to be sick for a couple of days. And I was like, he's like, that family of mushroom, there's no really mushroom that will kill you, you know. So I was like, all right, you know, thank God. Ended up getting fired from that job, you know, for that reason. But I actually didn't serve any of those mushrooms to guests, you know.
Thank goodness.
Thankfully, you know, so, but
that's interesting though, that it would still be like, you know, you brought this in here, you're fired, when you didn't really fully know, you know, like,
I mean,
that's interesting. I mean, they take it serious, I guess, when it's something like the CDC's concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I you know, to be honest, the relationship with me and the owner were a little rocky at that time.
Oh, so he was probably,
so it was kind of like one of those, there's my excuse, you know? So, I mean, it's understandable, you know, whatever. they say you're nothing in this industry until you get fired a few times, right?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So then I was, after that, I was like looking to get into New York. You know, I was staging at 11 Madison Park, and I was actually foraging and selling mushrooms to Dan Barber at Stone Barns. You know, to kind of supplement income while I was staging at 11 Madison Park. And then, so one day I had brought mushrooms, this like box of mushrooms to Dan Barber, and the CDC there was like, he's like, hey, we have Renee Redzepi coming in next week. We need you to hook it up with, a bunch of mushrooms. I was like, sweet, like I got that, and so spent the week just searching for any mushrooms that I could possibly find. It was fall time, so it was like perfect, Yeah. And I had brought him this box of, I don't know, it was probably like 10 or 12 different varieties of like all edible mushrooms.
Yeah.
And at that time I had saw online that they were hiring. So I had brought my resume along with it too.
It's a smart move.
Yeah,
Just roll it up here.
Oh,
Absolutely. So that was actually funny. I had found these mushrooms. They're called witch's butter. They're like a gummy bear mushroom almost.
That's a
they're
great name, by the way.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
They're bright orange and and they're like very similar texture to like gummy bears, but they taste like mushrooms. And so I had a bag of them. They're like really small mushrooms, but I had a bag of them. And when Dan Barber looked at him, he's like, "Oh, what's these?" And like ate one of them, and I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Hope you're not busy tonight, chef." And you should have seen the look on his face. He was like, "Am I going to start tripping?" I just started laughing, but I gave him my resume. And he's like, "Oh, you cook?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Good. You start on Saturday." And I was like, "Oh, sweet."
Damn, that's awesome.
Good impression. Hell yeah.
I was like, "Sweet, this is cool." So that's how I got my job at Blue Hill, and that was a crazy, crazy experience. That caliber of a restaurant. Within what was it? Last year, they're number 9 on the world's best restaurants.
Oh,
in the top 50.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Just seeing that kind of execution and demand for excellence. It's crazy, crazy. And it was like right along what I was looking for too, like a restaurant on a farm. I could forage and bring up mushrooms, and we grew a lot of our own produce. So it was awesome. It taught me a lot about like discipline and pushing how hard you can go. And at that time we were working like 85, 90 hours a week. It was intense. Like 13, 14-hour days, and it was a crazy experience. But ended up leaving there, wanting to get out of New York. Not quite my lifestyle,
A lot of hustle and bustle there.
Yeah, the go, and
I've never been, but I'm sure I'd be angry.
It's intense.
Wow. Yeah.
It's intense for sure. Especially like going down to like Times Square and like stuff like the touristy stuff. It's just like so much going on. It's just like, oh my god,
I'm more of an art district guy. Just put me there where the cool shit. Where's the High Line? I'm gonna hang out here. Oh, I can't afford it. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I'm homeless.
Absolutely. So I was looking to get out of New York, and I was actually looking to go back to DC because my brother lives there, and looking to just be closer to family and stuff like that. And I ended up finding a posting for what used to be Fleet Street Kitchen, and I was like, oh, this sounds cool. It's a restaurant. They have their own farm. Fine dining. Blah blah blah. It's kind of like exactly what I was looking for. So I was like, oh, go to Baltimore. Let's check out Baltimore.
East side. Here.
And really thinking it was going to be like literally anything else, like 1 to 2 years, and move on to somewhere else. And and I got here, and it was just awesome. Baltimore's awesome city, and
let's isolate all of that. That's one of the key things you want. Because here's the thing. I'm glad you got to that point, because that's the thing where, people just don't see it.
Yeah,
like people don't see like.
What's portrayed on the media is not how Baltimore it is. Like, you have your pockets and stuff like that, but
it's every East Coast city.
Exactly,
that's the same fucking thing.
Exactly. The heavy urban, everything is going to have its own criminal, problems.
Yeah,
it's not the worst. We're better than Chicago, right? We're still better than Chicago. Right?
Wow.
Wow.
We're like somewhere right. I know we're like neck and neck with them, but
even from the standpoint of like, I always look at it from a cultural standpoint, right? Like, not necessarily in terms of like people and demographics, but I think it has like a certain culture about it. It has like an art. It has a heartbeat. It has a character, right? So when you have people who come here, like I know people who are transplants that move here, right? And you're a transplant that's moved in here. So I want to hear about that too. Like, ultimately, why'd you stay? Why'd you decide to open your business here and all of that? But I look at it like this, where I know people who are like in DC, and DC is supposed to be so much better, right? And they'll come up here, it's like, wow, you guys have a lot of restaurants here, a lot of cool shit that's just popping up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, because we have cool shit here. Like, what else do you want?
Yeah, yeah.
And we have like interesting people who are doing interesting things, and I just try to attach myself to it because, in some ways, in a very, very minute way, I'm a bit of a tastemaker in the different circles that I'm in, and people like abroad, they'll come here and it's like, where would you go? I was like, I try to stay informed, and I take recommendations and I give them, and that's the way I look at it. And we got a lot of cool shit that's going on here.
Absolutely. Baltimore's like, as a city, it's awesome. It's so much culture and so much cool things, and it's just a cool place, and then Maryland in general is beautiful. Drive an hour and you're out in the county or out in the mountains, or drive an hour or two east and you're at the beach. Like, you have literally everything in between, and the seasons are great. Like, winter's not so bad. Just when you're like tired of the cold and whatever, it's like switching to spring, and it's like summers aren't too bad. So Baltimore's awesome. I love it here.
How do the mushrooms differ? Because that's the thing. Like, it seemed like you were down south. You kind of hit that kind of like slope along the like what is it, like the eastern seaboard or have you?
Yeah.
How would you say the mushrooms have differed? Because it seems like that's been a thorough line for you.
So it's relatively the same. There's some mushrooms you can't find here just because where we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of the fall mushrooms you don't really get here, like yellowfoots and like matsutakis and
Sounds Japanese.
Yeah, it's one of their favorites actually. But it's definitely, you can find everything else: morels and chanterelles and black trumpets and hen of the woods and chickens. Like, literally, it keeps me busy for sure.
Is there any vegetable that isn't indigenous to Maryland that you wish kind of was that you could forage?
It's what I probably miss the most is citrus from Florida.
Really?
Yeah, like some of the citrus that we used to get down there was just mind blowing. It was so good, so good.
That's awesome. See, I wouldn't expect that, but citrus, baby.
It's awesome. No, I'm just saying, for being a Floridian, it's cool that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one I missed the most, it was these little fruits. They're probably about that big, and they're variegated on the outside, and it was like this. It's like this cross between a lime and an orange, but it was like kind of sour like a lime, but like super sweet like an orange, and it was oh my god, it was so good. But you just can't get that up here.
Yeah. Put it on the list. We got to try that.
Yeah, we might need to import that. That sounds really good. I like that.
It's awesome.
So let's start getting into some of the questions we have. You're gonna be on the hot seat, Chris.
All right, let's do it.
So you want to start with yours?
Sizzle. Yeah, I'll ask one.
So we can treat it like a duck goose situation.
It's a good segue right there, because you know what I'm talking about first.
He's gonna go right into duck. He's like, so when you were dripping that duck fat, I was like, shut up.
I mean, I can't stop singing the praises of your roast duck.
Thank you.
Whenever it's on the menu, it is what I'm getting for dinner. It could have been like another breakfast for dinner situation. If that duck is on the menu, I'm getting it. And I've said it a ton of times in everything I post and the reviews I've done. It's the ribeye steak of the poultry and
I agree with you
game
100%.
fowl.
Yeah.
I've never had a duck prepared and cooked like that. So my first question was, what are your top 3 ways to prepare a duck?
Top 3 ways, actually, really only if we're talking about a breast, like a nice roasted breast, like really there's only one way for me. Score the skin so you can render out a lot of that fat, and really it's about patience with duck. Season it real nice, just salt, pepper, and put it skin side down in the pan and just let it go slow and low until you render out a lot of that fat. You just gotta keep pouring the fat out of the pan, and that's what gets it real crispy.
Interesting.
What gets that skin real crispy. So then once you render the fat down in the skin, generally speaking, the meat of the duck is going to be done, and all you really got to do is, baste it out with some butter and garlic and thyme, and let it rest, and you're there.
That's awesome.
What are you doing, Chris?
Yeah.
I'm taking mental notes because I want to find a duck. Like, does Wegmans have duck?
Wegmans should have duck.
They probably.
I think they do.
Yeah, I'm going to have to try that at home. See how close I can hit to the mark.
We're gonna get goddamn crepes after this, and I'm hearing about duck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll go back and forth.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. So mission. Like, if we were to talk about like what the mission of Foraged is, like, can you put that into some words or what have you? Maybe a few words.
Man, I should probably have a better answer for this. I get asked this a lot. I think really like it's just opening people's eyes to what's around them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if I can show you that, this plant that's growing right here, like literally in your yard that you can eat, awesome, or like you can tap this tree that's in your yard and make your own maple syrup, or, pull water from the Chesapeake Bay and get your own salt. It's just, I think it's more about just, opening people's eyes to what's around them and, exposing them to new things and, stuff that grows right here in front of everybody.
Okay, yeah, that's great, actually, because I think a lot of times we overlook what's right in front of us.
Absolutely.
And yeah, something as simple as like, oh, well, if I want syrup, I need to go to Vermont. I need to go here. I need to rob a truck in Canada to steal maple syrup. And you could easily tap something here, and kind of it's just being aware of what's around you. I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, we tap a lot of black walnut trees because there's a lot of black walnut trees here in Maryland. I don't know if you guys ever had black walnut syrup.
I have
Yes,
not.
I have at the breakfast for dinner event. We got those flapjacks.
Shameless fucking plug.
Boom! I don't care. I go.
La la la! You got like a big F
It's
tattoo on his shoulder.
delicious.
I should have brought some, but next time you're at the restaurant, let me know. I still have some, but like it's phenomenal. It tastes similar to maple, but it's got like that nutty kind of flavor to it. And it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you start looking at like the diversity of certain items. So like, I think I was watching some documentary about, I think it was in Japan, and they were talking about like just different types of salt and where they get their salt from. And it was like dozens of varieties of salt. I was like, I thought it was just 3 different types: pink, white, and other white. It's like, no, it's it's deeper than that. And I think having some consideration for that, and I think that's what I get out of what ultimately you're doing. It's just like there are more things around you than you're probably aware of, and they taste good.
Yeah. I mean, I think the funny thing about salt is that the question I get a lot is
spin it.
Like, where do you get the salt from? How do you get the salt out of the water? And like, if you think about it, it's just evaporation. That's literally all it is. And I have this thing I think people forgot, like where their food actually comes from. You know what I'm saying? Like, sure, there's salt mines and stuff like that, but we live right by the ocean. Yeah. You have a free supply of salt, and all you got to do is literally evaporate the water, and you have salt.
I mean, we get our salt from the tears of other podcasters. That's just how we go about it.
That's the best salt, to be completely honest.
It is. And it's so salty, too. So what else you got there?
Okay.
So back to your pig ears.
Well, the first thing that ever caught my attention about Foraged is you bill yourself as the hyper seasonal eatery. And I love that. Like, just the fact that you change according to the season. Sometimes you have special stuff in. How do you determine what comes to the seasonal changes in the menu?
To me, there's 52 seasons. Every week there's something different. You know what I'm saying?
That's such a great answer. I'm sorry. That's such a good answer.
Oh my God,
Go on. I'm sorry.
Get out over here.
I can't help it. I can't help it.
Especially like going into spring, it's crazy. Like literally week to week, there's something new to put on the menu. There's something new, that farmers have. Even summer and fall. Winter gets a little tricky. But it's literally like everything has such a specific season, and that's kind of how I judge, what to put on the menu. And, some things have shorter seasons, and like fiddlehead ferns. This is always the example I use. Like literally here in Maryland, you have like a literally 3-day window to get these ferns before they unroll themselves, and like that's it for the year.
Interesting.
So it's, stuff like that. And then really it's like, what are the farmers excited about? What are they growing that they're excited about? That's what's going to translate into the menu and, make me excited, and then pass that on to the guests.
Oh yeah. I just know every time I come in, I'm excited to see if there are changes. I always pay attention to the news feeds and everything, looking for what changes week to week, month to month. Can't get enough of it, really.
Awesome.
Have you ever foraged something that you were like, I wish we had enough of this, but we can't put it on the menu because we didn't get enough of it?
No, I don't think really. I mean, a lot of foraging really depends on the weather. You know, so good example. Last year we had a really strong start to the season of foraging. A lot of rain, a lot of sun. You know, and then come like midsummer, it was like, I don't know, July through August, maybe sometime into September. Like it just stopped raining. Like we didn't get any rain, and then basically killed foraging season. At least for mushrooms, you could still get like plants and stuff. I'm not too big into plants, but you know, mushrooms are more my thing. But you know, so it's really based off that. You know, and the first year we opened, oh my God, it was crazy. Like we had so much rain that year. It was mushrooms like I have never seen before. You know, black trumpet mushrooms, like late summer. There was one point in time we had 60 pounds of black trumpet mushrooms in the restaurant.
Wow.
And like for me, like I don't even know if I've ever seen that many black trumpet mushrooms. Like you're talking about mushrooms that are so light, and like one's like maybe 4 or 5 grams, you know, depending on the size of it. So like literally you would walk up to any beech tree and it was just carpeted with black trumpet mushrooms. And it was, you know, that year alone we probably put
Shroom soup.
1,000 pounds of wild mushrooms through the restaurant. Like
That's
it
awesome.
was insane, the amount of mushrooms. But you know, really, you know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You know, it's just kind of
How the weather goes and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I got spots for days for anything. So if one's not fruiting, I'll go to another, and
There you go.
That's the food equivalent of like a skateboard. That's a spot right there. That's a skate spot. That's a mushroom spot right there.
I love that. That is a good analogy, sir.
This is an interesting one. At least I think, and I think you touched on it a little bit, but maybe expound. How has your view on food changed over the years? Like from maybe where you started to where you're at now, or where you think you may be going. Like, I'm looking at food in this way. Kind of didn't really respect it in that way previously.
That's a good question. You know, it's definitely evolved a lot, and I think that diners have evolved a lot. I think one of the big things now is people are more aware of what they're eating, or at least trying to be, and you know, trying to be more conscious of knowing where their food comes from and who grew it, and you know, stuff like that, which I think is awesome. You know, I think getting back to those like, you know, old days of like people actually knowing where their food comes from rather than going to a grocery store and seeing meat that never has a face because it's just prepackaged meat, you know, or, you know, vegetables that, you know, you can get tomatoes at a grocery store in January or February, you know, but it's completely different. You know, I think people are starting to recognize that, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
It is.
I think that is important in people being like, just with the, I think, increase of everything being plant-based, or at least having that attempt. And I think, people are being more aware because we have different health things that present themselves, and pretty much you are what you eat. So if you're just going through and just eating something that may not be the healthiest for you, or not being aware of what you're eating and cognizant of it, or just mindlessly eating. Because just in the experience, we'll be going back soon. I've told my girlfriend about Forage. And now she's just like, really? You didn't take me? I was like, well, but you know, going there and not mindlessly eating, but mindfully eating. It's like, oh, let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy each component here. And generally, what I got there, that's not something I really get. We had the smoked tomato soup. With it was fire. It was awesome. It was delicious.
Oh, it was amazing. Absolutely.
And I don't really check for tomato soup. It's not something that's there, but having it, you know, at Forage was a different experience. And it was like, you could tell like the depth of flavor. You could tell that work was done there. It wasn't just, we just put that together. And it's just like, okay, I know what I'm eating here, and I'm eating this purposely, and that's like, I get it, and that's what I got out of what was being put on my plate. What was put on my table in front of me. So
absolutely,
it's great.
That's cool. You know, another cool thing about what we do is like, you know, everything's changes a lot, but somebody tells me what they ate when they came to, I can pinpoint, you know, almost to a day of when you ate there. It's funny.
Because I want to say it was our server. Is it Pete?
Nico? It was probably Nico.
Nico.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, these are the last two. And I'm like, this was kismet.
Oh, okay. So
Because the original post on Instagram was, hey, you need to ask for this because it's so limited.
Yeah.
We're only going to have so much and we're not going to put it on the menu. It's a secret item.
Yep.
And just immediately I was like, yes, this was perfect. This was meant to be.
So let's see. I had a couple more questions. And did you?
Well, I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, essentially, like last year, I was very fortunate enough to get to the Breakfast for Dinner event, and I know you guys have done stuff with Icky Ben in the past, and oh gosh, I know I'm forgetting someone in there.
Kevin Brothers. We
There
did the
you go.
mushroom dinner.
Yep. There it is. Can we look forward to any collaborations in 2020 that you can talk about? Or
Actually, I got a lot lined up for this year.
Oh.
It's going to be really fun. So, since we're only a couple weeks away, actually, my first guest chef's dinner this year is going to be with Zach Mills from True Chesapeake. We're going to be doing an oyster dinner. Was it
man.
March 8th? I think it is.
That's awesome.
I should know this. I should without having my calendar in front of me. But yeah, but basically every month. So Zach Mills is March. April is Helena from the Larder in Remington.
Okay.
That's near sophomore.
Yep.
She does awesome work over there. Let's see. May is going to be Tay Strain. Good chef friend of mine. Worked for David Chang and stuff like that. He's worked at a lot of really good restaurants. June, it's going to be awesome. We're going to do a taco night.
Nice.
With the chef from Clavel.
Yeah.
We'll be there for that.
That'll
We're
be
so
fun.
going to be there
That'll
for
be
that.
fun. I actually just met with him yesterday about it. Super pumped for that one.
That is awesome.
July, we're going to be doing a barbecue on 4th of July with some of our friends that come into the restaurant a lot. They're like have smokers, so we're gonna have smokers, and like we're going like Southern style like barbecue.
Yeah.
I cannot wait.
That's awesome.
Let's see, July, and then August is actually gonna be Kevin Brothers again. We're gonna for the mushroom dinner, and I don't have anybody lined up for September or anything past that, but working on those.
You're
So
gonna have your
what's
two
up.
new favorite podcasters that a lot of these events just
Sweet.
popping up.
Yeah, mental notes. My
Sweet.
calendar is just getting marked down. Yeah.
It's like, God is tech. Is that barbecue?
No, that sounds incredible. That sounds extremely exciting.
it's gonna be fun. It's
yeah.
gonna be fun.
Oh man.
I think collaboration is really important. And like it's like Baltimore is not huge.
Yeah.
And I think like people have their scenes and everything is kind of a thing. And I think when people collaborate and kind of get rid of this kind of like this veil of I do my shit, you do your shit. How would you describe the Baltimore food and maybe even drink scene too? How would you describe like those scenes like compared to other places you've been? Like how would you describe it?
I would say it's more of like a community here. You know, a lot of the chefs, like we talk back and forth about, you know, cooks and food and, you know, whatever the case may be. You know, I think it's a really strong community here with a lot of the chefs, which is awesome. I think it's incredible.
The fact that you guys go back and forth, like collaborating on menus, it strengthens the art form, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and there's a lot of great chefs here in Baltimore. You know, we want to support each other and, you know, raise it up, raise the bar. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like look, your chicken box, sir. No. So let's go into the segment that I enjoy the most. I like to get advice. I think everybody that's listening to this wants to create something, wants to put out there. This is how I interpret food. This is how I podcast. This is how I paint. So I think advice is important.
Absolutely.
So what would you say is a piece of advice that you received maybe when you were younger in your career that you think still holds true that you would share with someone who's like, hey, I'm going to go out there and forage, do some shit. Where the mushrooms? You know, like what a piece of advice you would give someone that's aspiring to be a chef?
You know, I think the main thing is just do it. You know what I'm saying? If you want to do something, just do it. You know, cooking is you know, I think a lot of people overthink cooking a lot. You know, it's really cooking comes from the heart. Like that's what cooking is. When
Amen.
You know, you don't overthink things, or sure you read a recipe, but like you don't follow that recipe. Like what does it mean to you? What are you cooking? Who are you cooking for? You know what I'm saying? It's more past that. You know, I think that's the biggest thing about getting into cooking, and you know, or anything really. You know, follow your dreams. You know,
totally. Yeah, get off your ass. Do it.
Exactly.
Get those mushrooms. Strangle that duck or whatever.
I swear to goodness, if that's the only way I could get a duck at Foraged from now on, I will choke the life out of all the ducks.
Yeah.
That's a little violent. I'm sure we'll get some hate mail for it, but I don't care.
So
I'll punch a duck in the face. I don't care.
I've punched ducks.
Just
actually.
render that fat down, baby.
That sounded sexier than I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're towards the end. So let's the social media. Where can he find you? The whole thing, man.
So yeah, I mean, location, we're in Hamden, Chestnut Avenue, 3520 Chestnut Avenue. Social media, Instagram and Facebook, Foraged.Eatery. Yeah.
Get your asses over there. Get a plate. Bob and Kristen. Dan wasn't involved. Dan wasn't here. Dan's a ghost. He's a food ghost.
Try the pig ears.
I mean, we had so much good food there. I'm just really happy that you came through.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Dan D.
Whoop, whoop.
This is Rob Lee for Chris.
Yeah, thank you
For
guys.
Forge, this is Rob Lee, and I want to thank you guys for listening to getting to the truth of this art. And until next time, it's been real.